As an INTJ, you probably think most of your decisions are driven by logic. And to be fair, they are to an extent. But if you're honest, there are times where it just feels a little bit off. You can be productive, you can be resourceful, you can be independent, but sometimes just like the drive or the motivation, it's just not there. Or even like your actions aren't matching the goals that you've set, even though you have all the capabilities to do it. Or you just seem to be chasing something for some reason that just doesn't seem to be fulfilling. Interestingly, a lot of the time that's not actually a mindset problem. It's a human needs problem. More specifically, a mismatch between the needs your brain is wired to prioritize and how your brain is trying to meet them. I'm an INTJ under the Myers-Briggs system, an Olympian, and an NLP and mindset coach specializing in subconscious dynamics. I help high achievers get unstuck by rewiring the mental patterns they can't see but keep running. If you want to find out more about that or work one-on-one with me, you can go to the link below. So if you've seen any of Tony Robbins' work, every human has 6 psychological human needs, but not in equal measure. And I think that's quite important to note. Each person will inherently prioritize a couple of these needs over the others. And this is where I believe it's linked to your cognition, how your mind is wired to process the world. And therefore, it makes sense then that this would change between personality types. These needs and how they are prioritized shapes how you set goals, how you judge your own success, and why certain things leave you feeling off even when they make sense. It's also why you unconsciously indulge in unhelpful behaviors like procrastination, over-controlling behavior, etc., etc. In this video, I'll show you why that is, what's subconsciously driving you, and a tool to get you moving when you feel stuck or unmotivated. I once worked with this client, let's just call him Jerry. Jerry wanted to be more assertive when meeting women. He was really shy, and especially around women that he felt like were really attractive. He had this really strong desire to have a meaningful and fulfilling relationship, get married, and eventually have a family. But his confidence, or his lack of confidence, felt like the main thing standing in his way in getting that. For years, he had been trying to fix his shyness. He thought of himself as nervous, awkward, and low in self-confidence. But from the outside, he was a thoughtful, intelligent man who had like a lot to offer. The shyness didn't really make sense. As we worked together, something really interesting came up. Through the process, we uncovered a deeper part of him, the part that was responsible for the shyness, and were able to get to the root of what its role was. And it turns out, like most people, the part wasn't trying to ruin his chances, it was trying to protect him. Specifically, it didn't want him to embarrass himself around women. So that part of him believed that if it did or said the wrong thing, then he would be judged or he would be rejected. And it was subconsciously doing everything it could to protect him and stop that from happening. So I asked him, what is that part of you really trying to achieve that's positive by preventing you from embarrassing yourself? And almost immediately he replied, and with a little bit of surprise in his voice as well, I just want to be close to people. So he realized the part of him that was sabotaging his confidence was actually trying to achieve the same thing as what he was consciously trying to achieve to get rid of his shyness, because they both wanted connection. But it was just running this protective strategy of the shyness, and it no longer served him or what he wanted. Once he was able to see that clearly, we consciously worked on updating that strategy, and the inner conflict dissolved. And instead of battling his shyness, he found new and more useful ways to genuinely connect with others, especially women. Okay, so what's the problem? The problem is behaviors that aren't serving you. For example, you might periodically experience things like procrastination, over-controlling behavior, distraction, the need of being right, putting others down, chasing status or control, people-pleasing, avoiding closeness altogether. Some people numb with consumption, or they get burnout from overachievement or feeling lost, and the list goes on and on. Dysfunctional behaviors often arise from the inability to consistently meet the core human needs in a healthy way. But people's needs aren't just behind the bad decisions we make, they're also behind the great things that humans accomplish. Understanding your own needs and your own psychology can not only help you avoid toxic behaviors and habits, but it can also help you achieve your goals. The problem isn't your need. The problem is how these needs are being met. When human needs aren't met consciously and positively, your brain will find a way to meet them anyway. And often that is through unconscious negative reactions or behaviors. This is where understanding the cognitive functions can be really useful. You don't have to understand them to understand this video, but I would highly recommend you look into them and get a basic grasp of what they are for your personality type. I put it off for a really long time because I thought it was a bit more complicated than it actually is, but it's a super useful tool to actually move forward and expand beyond your personality. When your dominant cognitive functions are online and they're like steering the ship, you usually will find healthy, aligned ways to meet your needs. But when a lot of stress hits or the usual strategies aren't working, your brain doesn't stop trying, it just sort of switches to the backup routes. And that's where the messy stuff starts to happen. The key is to meet all 6 needs in ways that are sustainable, empowering, and aligned with your values. That is what I believe is the foundation of fulfillment. So, the 6 human needs. Tony Robbins identifies 6 core human needs. There's certainty, variety, significance, growth, contribution, and connection or love. These are universal. We all have them, but we don't all prioritize them in the same way. Good old Tony Robbins, he says that each person individually prioritizes them, and each person has at least 2 that they prioritize over the rest. Think of your core needs like hunger. You need food, that's natural. But when you're really stressed out or you're really hungry and you're not thinking clearly, what do you reach for? The junk food, fast food, sugar, junk food. It gives you relief, but doesn't give you nourishment. And that's sort of what the dysfunctional behavior is like. It's junk food for your unmet needs. Procrastination, it gives you temporary relief from pressure, but doesn't fill your sense of progress. Overachieving, it gives you a sense of significance, but it's kind of like chasing the sugar highs. People pleasing, it kind of gives you a hit of connection, but no sense of deep belonging. The real problem isn't that you are hungry, it's that you're feeding your hunger unconsciously, and it's making you sick. When you can learn to meet your needs intentionally, like cooking real food, you stop reacting and you start building a life that actually satisfies you. And here's where I believe cognition comes in. Your cognitive wiring, I believe, naturally prioritizes certain needs over others. Not because the others don't matter, but because your brain is built to pursue some needs more efficiently than others and therefore places more importance on them. So as an INTJ, my mind tends to prioritize things like growth. If you know the cognitive functions, that would be driven by introverted intuition. And then my other top priority probably be significance or certainty. And that's driven by extroverted thinking or NI again, combination of both. As an INTJ, you seek evolution, mastery, depth. You want your insights to matter, or at least I do. And I like to be respected for my competence. I would really love any INTJs watching this to pause the video and put in the comments a priority list, 1 to 6, of how you would naturally prioritize these needs. Actually, if you're any type, put your type and pause the video and write down how you get a sense that you inherently prioritize these needs. An easy way to do this is just pin one against the other. So if you could only take one, which one would you take? So if I could only take one, growth or significance, which one would I take? I would take growth. If you could only take one, which one would you take? Variety or certainty? I'd probably take certainty. And you just keep kind of doing that until you've got a list in order. And we can test this out together. So for example, say an ESFP, which has the same cognitive functions but in reverse order to an INTJ, they would likely prioritize variety with their sensing driver, or love and connection would probably be up there too, with which could be FI or even SE probably. Whereas say someone like an ENTP, which is often considered the INTJ's shadow in terms of cognitive functions, and they utilize the opposite cognitive functions with more relative strength. They would likely prioritize things like variety, but through extroverted intuition rather than like the extroverted sensing like the ESFP. Or they might prioritize growth as well, but through like a combination of extroverted intuition and introverted thinking, because that's their 2 main functions. This is all just me thinking, so don't take it as gospel. but this is how I think it all fits together. So integrating NLP or Neurolinguistic programming. So we've all got the same needs, but we've got different cognitive strategies. Our brains all take in information and make decisions differently, depending on our personality types. And here's where Neurolinguistic programming, or these 6 human needs, add clarity. Every behavior, just like with Jerry at the start, every behavior has a positive intention. Even procrastination, perfectionism, avoidance, or overworking, they're all trying to meet a need. Just like Jerry was subconsciously using shyness to try and keep him connected. So whether those needs are met usefully or not, like your inner working and your subconscious always has a positive intention. It's trying to get these needs met. It's just doing it in a pretty silly way, which we want to update and upgrade and optimize. If your preferred cognitive strategy isn't working, like I said, your brain's still going to try and meet that need. It's just going to do it in unconscious or reactive ways. So as an INTJ, when you're overwhelmed or stressed out and you're in a state of stress, your brain's likely going to start dropping into less developed functions, and they're going to be forced to be used instead of when you want to develop functions, you need to give them space to be used in a sort of safe space, because it's like they're little kids. You don't want to force them into the situations when they're not ready. So if you're under stress and they're just having to start driving the boat, start driving the car, whatever, they're going to be not that good at it. If you want to look up Personality Hacker's car model, that's really useful to understand how it kind of works. You would still be trying to meet your needs, especially your prioritized ones like significance and growth. But for example, if you went into your feeling function, you might start looping internal emotion and self-judgment. Or if you went into your sensory function under stress, you might start being impulsive, seeking distraction, overstimulation, or hyperfixation on the external. So they're just less effective strategies to meet those needs, and they leave you feeling kind of uncharacteristic or off track. So the solution, clarity through strategy. This is why the human needs is such a useful tool. It's not just about understanding the need, it's about identifying the strategy. So instead of judging your behavior like procrastination or overwhelm, you can pause and ask, what need am I trying to meet right now? Am I meeting it through my strengths, through sort of planning and putting those plans into actions in a sort of calm and calculated way, or through a fallback, through my weaker functions or even my shadow functions? Is this need being met in a non-useful way for me? And what is a more aligned way to meet this need? So for example, you might be procrastinating and you've worked out you're trying to protect your significance. If I don't do it, I can't fail at all, and I won't be considered insignificant. So instead, you want to lead into one of your stronger functions, which is extroverted thinking, and you want to start building a bit of structure around it, define what success means to you, and you want to take action. Because once you've defined your success, then that can give you that sense of significance. Or if you're feeling, say, flat and disconnected, you might be cut off from the need of growth, and you're not sort of seeing your long-term purpose. So you want to sort of give yourself time and space to sort of recharge, think about things, think about your longer-term ideas and vision, and reconnect with sort of the deeper sense of what it is that you are after. So it's not about fixing you, it's about utilizing your brain and your mind in a way that it was designed to function. And it also doesn't mean that you don't use your other functions. We all use all of them all the time, and they're operating together anyway. But it's all about approaching things in a way that makes sense to how you operate, not trying to replicate exactly what someone else might be doing to meet that need, especially if they're a different personality type to you. You want to try and use your dominant functions or your strengths and give space to your less developed ones if they're the ones that need to be used to meet that need. So it's sort of like you plan to be spontaneous rather than just throwing yourself in something. So you've sort of gone about it in a very kind of organized way, which suits your personality a lot better than just throwing yourself into things because you're like, I'm not feeling connected, I'm not feeling fun, I'm not feeling happy, so I need to just throw myself into social situations and throw myself into activities. That doesn't really work. I've tried it. It doesn't work for me anyway. So for example, I used to hit these burnout walls out of nowhere. It's seemingly nowhere. So one minute I was really productive and structured, and the next minute I was binge watching Netflix. I was inhaling snacks. Almost I had like reverted to a teenager with like zero control. Sometimes I would like go out and excessively binge drink with my friends. And it just wasn't me, because I had put so much emphasis on my top needs, and so they were being fulfilled, but the lower needs weren't being met. And so it's going to come out eventually. So my subconscious is like, you still need variety and connection. Stop just chasing after your goals and being all significant, and let's inject some fun into this. And subconsciously it's like in a really messy way. So instead of fighting that, I built that into my system. I literally schedule rest weeks and being an absolute slob or pleb. I don't have to do anything. I don't have any like objectives. I don't need to be productive. I'm just allowed to rest and recharge. Whatever that feels like to me at that time, it's like I pre-planned to be very flexible and very free and give space to the parts of me that need it, and to actually give my strengths kind of a break. So if I've pre-planned it, pre-locked it in a way that's planned out and executed well, then I can use sort of my sensing functions, and I can ponder on my feelings, how I'm feeling about things, instead of sort of repressing everything and it all coming out at once in some seemingly random way. And so what I found when I've structured that into my programming and into the way that I operate, then those are much shorter. I don't need a lot of time to recharge in that way. But if I need it, then it's usually like a whole week that I kind of schedule. It's like I know that this is going to be a hectic time for me. I know that I'm doing a lot. I know that that's going to be physically and emotionally difficult for me. So I'm going to schedule this week where I don't have to do anything outside of like your primary responsibilities. And that works really well for me. So the same is for connection. Like for me, connection is not a priority. It's probably one of the lowest compared to other people. But it is a core human need, and it's very, very important that I feel it in a way that makes me connected. So I feel the most connected than I've ever been, but if you were to compare it to someone else that's perhaps more social or has it as a higher priority, it would look very different. So I'm not trying to meet their level of connection. I'm trying to meet my level of connection. And as I said, the way that I do that is planning the way that I connect with people, and it's very structured and it's very intentional and it's very conscious the way that I make sure that I feel connected. Like in advance, say if I've decided that I'm going to an event or something, I've decided in advance that that's a connection point for me. I'll mentally prepare to be flexible, and I'll check in with what I want from the experience and the loose expectations around that, which doesn't have to be much because the point of it was connection. So like when I was younger, I used to think, well, what's the point of sort of hanging out with this person if it's not someone I want to hang out with all the time? But I realized as a basic human need, I need to connect with people. So sometimes just going out for a coffee with someone you hardly ever see and not necessarily your best mate or whatever, like that's still a very pleasant experience. It sort of meets that need for connection, and you're not going to subconsciously come up with unhealthy ways to go and meet that need. So I'm not trying to be an extrovert. I don't need a full calendar of connection. I just need to make the connections that I do have, or the points of connections, matter. I still spend probably 80% of my time alone. And like I said, I've never felt more connected. If you enjoyed this video and you're looking for further tools and strategies to optimize your life, I made a video you might like here.